Okay, get this. What if I told you one of the biggest mysteries in all of philosophy was actually solved almost 350 years ago? We're talking about the secret connection between your mind and your body.
Yeah, I know. It sounds a little crazy, right? But this idea, the idea that we've been chasing our tails on a problem that was solved right when it started, that's exactly what we're going to dig into. And this is a problem that gets to the very core of who we are. So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to lay out the problem that's had thinkers scratching their heads for centuries. Then, we'll introduce the philosopher who came along with a totally radical answer. We'll see how his idea stacks up against a modern brain scan. And then, we'll get to the real kicker. If he was right, why on earth did we ignore him? All right, let's dive right in. We'll start with the problem itself, a puzzle with a fantastic name, the ghost in the machine. Our story kicks off way back in the 17th century with this guy, René Descartes. You really can't talk about this stuff without mentioning him. He was an absolute giant of philosophy, and he came up with an idea about reality that was so powerful it literally set the terms of the debate for the next 300 years. He called it dualism, and the basic idea is pretty straightforward. Descartes believed that the entire universe is made of two totally different kinds of stuff. You've got physical stuff, things you can touch like your chair or even your own body, and then you've got non-physical stuff, the world of thoughts, feelings, consciousness, in other words, your mind. And I mean, he saw this as a really, really deep split. The mind is the ghost, it's immaterial, it isn't made of anything. The body, on the other hand, is the machine. It's just physical matter, like a complex clockwork. According to Descartes, these two things operate in completely separate worlds. And boom, right away, this brilliant separation created a massive problem. If the mind is a non-physical ghost and the body is a physical machine, how does the ghost actually drive it? How does a thought, which has no weight and takes up no space, make your very real, very physical arm reach out and grab something? That is the classic mind-body problem. So how do you solve a puzzle like that? Well, this is where the hero of our story comes in, another 17th century philosopher, Baruch Spinoza, who came at it with a totally different and frankly radical answer. And this timeline is so important. Spinoza wasn't writing centuries later looking back. No, he published his masterpiece just a few decades after Descartes. He was looking directly at this brand new mind-body problem and basically said, whoa, hold on everybody, you're looking at this all wrong. Spinoza's answer was the polar opposite of dualism. It's called monism, from mono, meaning one. He argued that mind and body aren't two separate things at all. They're just two different ways of looking at one single unified reality. And he gave this brilliant analogy. Think about a curved line. From one side, you see it's convex, it bulges out. From the other side, you see it's concave, it dips in. You can't have the convex side without the concave side, right? They aren't two separate things trying to interact. They're just two descriptions of the exact same curve. And that's the crucial insight. The mind-body problem, it just disappears. There's no ghost trying to pilot a machine. There's just one thing, one event that can be described either in the language of thought or in the language of physical stuff. The problem isn't so much solved, it's dissolved. Now, that's a powerful idea, but for hundreds of years, it was just philosophy. So let's do something Spinoza couldn't. Let's fast forward 300 years and put his idea to the test with modern science. Let's look at this from the perspective of a brain scan. Think about what's happening in your brain right this second. As you're listening to me, a neuroscientist could put you in a scanner and see the outside view, a physical brain state made of neurons firing in a specific pattern. But your inside view is the mental state, the actual subjective experience of understanding these words. It's two perspectives on the exact same event. You see, the brain state doesn't cause the mental state. They are two descriptions of the same event. One is the physical perspective, the other is the mental perspective. It's just like Spinoza's concave and convex curve. It really seems like modern neuroscience is showing us exactly what he was trying to tell us all those years ago. And this leads us to the central mystery here. If Spinoza's solution is so elegant, and it seems to line up with modern science, why on earth are we still debating Descartes' mind-body problem? Well, the resistance seems to boil down to some very human factors. First, simple intellectual inertia. Descartes' framework is the foundation for centuries of work, and moving on from that is a huge lift. Then there's the really thorny problem of free will. If your mind is just one side of a physical process, are your choices actually free? That's a scary question. And finally, you've got institutional identity. Think about it. Entire academic careers have been built on trying to solve Descartes' problem. To admit it was dissolved centuries ago is, well, it's complicated.
But this resistance to a perfectly good answer isn't just about old philosophy. It points to a much bigger idea, which brings us to our final thought: the problems we, as people, sometimes refuse to solve.
The big takeaway here is pretty profound. The reason a problem might stay unsolved for centuries might have absolutely nothing to do with how difficult it is. Sometimes the real barriers are human: our traditions, our careers, and our deep resistance to ideas that challenge our comfortable assumptions.
So the story of the mind-body problem is really a cautionary tale. It forces us to ask a pretty uncomfortable question. What other unsolved problems out there already have a solution waiting for us? A solution that we're ignoring, not because it's wrong, but because we're just not ready to accept the answer.